Okay, we'll call our meeting to order. Get started. Thank you all for coming. I'll offer an invocation at this time. Dear Lord, we thank you for the blessings of another day. We thank you for the air conditioning that makes things more comfortable. And we pray for those that are struggling throughout our country as they deal with exceedingly high heat. And we just ask that they might find a refuge from that in some of these days and weeks to come. We thank you, Lord, for watching over us each and every day, for forgiving us of our sins, for forgiving us of our misgivings, for forgiving us of not treating our neighbor like we should. Thank you for your mercy. In your name, amen. Our next item is to adopt the business agenda. Nobody has a conflict and you had a chance to look it over. I'd like to ask for someone to make a motion that we adopt it as it is presented.
Mayor, I'll make a motion that we adopt the July 18th, 2023 agenda.
Okay, we have a motion by Councilman Smith. Do we hear a second to his motion? Second by Councilman Steinbach. Is there any more discussion on the matter? If there is none, all in favor signify by aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. The agenda will be approved as it is presented. Item 3 is under public comment, unscheduled. Nobody's signed up for that. The next item, item 4, approval of the July 5th, 2023 regular meetings. If you had an opportunity to review them and feel so moved, we can entertain a motion.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to approve the July 5th, 2023 regular city council meeting minutes as drafted.
Okay, have a motion by Councilwoman Bryant. Do we hear a second to her motion?
Second.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem Farabee. Any more discussion on this matter? All in favor of approving the minutes signify by aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. Minutes will be approved as they have been drafted. Item 5, I call on City Attorney Davis. Bring us up to speed on the Roanoke Rapids Theater. Good afternoon, Mr. Davis.
Afternoon. So once again, here we are on the theater. I know that some of the members of council were at the bid opening today at 4 p.m. I don't know if everybody was there. We did receive one envelope, and I'll get into why I'm having trouble kind of characterizing that as a bid in a moment. During the period, and so that was opened, in that envelope there was a check. There was no accompanying information as far as what the bid amount was, who the bidder was other than the name on the check, and I don't see how the city can consider that a valid bid. To do anything else would require someone at the city, whether it's me as city attorney, whether it's someone on city council, the city manager, to look into that and to interpret it. And I don't think we've got that authority. And so what I would say to council is that I don't think that meets the qualification of a legitimate upset bid. And so at this point, with the upset bid period passing and no new bids coming in, then I think we're done essentially with upset bids. So at this point, the last bid that came in, the one that started this last upset bid period or initiated it, becomes the final bid. City manager and I have talked briefly this afternoon. We don't have a resolution prepared for City Council to consider tonight. Pursuant to the terms of the previous resolution, it would need to come in front of Council to approve or reject that final bid within 30 days of today. Obviously, we will have that ready by next time. Now, certainly, if council wanted to notice a special meeting, we could do it earlier than that. But essentially, at this point, city personnel would prepare a resolution with terms in it that would come to council for a final approval regarding the bid tendered by Mr. White and his folks. And it's for council to accept or reject that. If council rejects that, that resets us to 0. If council accepts that, then, and it would be pursuant to the terms of the resolution, we would proceed to negotiate a contract of sale with Mr. White and his folks. And then ultimately, that would culminate in the final sale of that amount. I'm sure that Mr. Freeman is probably not happy with that. But as I said, I don't see how we can take any other alternative interpretation. I mean, this is a large piece of property, a lot of money moving around, and this is a very this is not a simple transaction, I'll say that. And so I think that puts some due diligence incumbent upon bidders to make sure that they meet the statutory requirements and submit a legitimate bid. And like I say, the alternative of that, if we try to say, all right, we're going to take this and we're going to look into it and we're going to characterize this as a legitimate upset bid. If we take that approach, I think we are begging for a lawsuit from the last highest bidders. That would be Mr. White's folks. I don't think they would have any other choice. And so at this point, that's kind of where we are. So I guess what I'm saying is I'm not asking for council action tonight. We will prepare, unless council wants to discuss a potential meeting, and I know that there's going to be some conversation later on, or maybe even in the context of now, regarding the August 1st meeting. But basically like I say, we would do is I would get with city manager, we would prepare a resolution, a draft, which would then be presented to council at whatever our next meeting is, and for council to either accept it or to reject it. And that's kind of where we are. So I realize there are probably some questions for that regarding those different pieces, so I will yield the floor to the extent I ever had it.
I do have a couple of quick questions. One, was the check amount satisfactory to the upset bid amount?
The statute, the 168-269 requires, there's a formula in there for how much of a bid has to be put down. And how much of a deposit you have to do. And so I guess that you could do, whether it's algebra or whatever, to work backwards from that and to try to assume that that's the bid that was put in. But I think that's a step too far for the city to make.
Was the check amount more than the 5% additional that is required?
I think if you went and did the reverse math and came up with what their bid would be, that yes, it would meet that qualification.
There was nothing in there but a check
Just a
when
check.
it was opened.
I'm sorry?
There was nothing in the envelope but a check
Just a check.
with the person's name on it.
Yes. Let's see.
On the previous bid or upset bid from either one, what was included in that criteria?
I can. There would have been terms in there. I can yield to the city manager. She's the one that actually
Okay.
opened most of them, right? Or the clerk.
The $2 million offer that came in on the, I guess it was on the 30th that was opened that day. That one had a letter attached to it, but most of the other ones have had some sort of correspondence attached that say, this is my bid and offer. But for the upset bid process, the statute says you need your bid and then your corresponding deposit of 5% of what your bid is. So, but as far as the other submittals that we've had, they've had the purchase price stated with the check amount that corresponds to the 5%.
When did we get that? Was that right after or was it coming late or?
I think we received it on July 10th.
July the 10th at
Yes.
3:35 p.m. in the afternoon.
July 10th.
And of course, the way this procedure works, just as a reminder to everybody, is these are sealed. We don't open them beforehand, and that's both to protect city employees and to protect the sanctity of the bidding process. And again, I think there's an onus on bidders to do it in such a way that they perfect their bid. That is, it's really not for city personnel to hold their hands or to give them legal advice. That's something in these kind of transactions that they really need to go out and seek themselves. And I'm not saying that reflecting on any one person in this whole process. I'm just saying, we're kind of operating at a higher level here in a commercial transaction or in a transaction of this nature than what you may be over like a parking fine or something like that. So
The previous bid, when Freeman upset, did he have additional paperwork at that time with that one?
he did, yes. And as I said, I don't see how, to me, from a legal standpoint, there can't be the only interpretation that I think that we can take is that this is not a qualifying upset bid that has come in during the period, and so at this point, the cycle of upset bids ends. And so at this point, it's for once we get a resolution prepared, and I think that's important. There was some talk between myself and the city manager since 4 o'clock about whether council needed to go ahead and take a vote to either accept or to reject it, and I would maybe suggest against that. I would feel a lot better if we had a resolution drafted in front of you that spelled out those terms, since that's really going to be the last that city council gets to say about it and about the transaction. So I think we need to go into it correctly, rather than kind of try to do something tonight and then try to do something later. So
Help me understand, what's the difference and what additional criteria does the contract have versus the resolution? Is the resolution just the act of us accepting the bid?
So yes, the resolution is the act of accepting the bid. There is going to be some other conditions in the resolution about what needs to be followed through, some timelines, as far as a date to have a contract negotiated. Like I say, we'll draft all that and present that to council, and some of those terms will be kind of brought in from the terms that have already been offered by these parties. And so then like I say, once council accepts, if council accepts, and I don't want to kind of say once council accepts, but if council accepts the highest bid now, the highest legitimate bid, and passes that resolution, then what that resolution is going to authorize is the negotiation of a contract. And that contract's going to spell out, it's all the little different pieces, just like you would have in a traditional in the traditional kind of residential real estate contract that I think probably people are more familiar with from their daily lives, all that small little, 8-point type font text describing the liabilities of the buyer and the seller and those different kind of aspects.
I have a question. Wasn't there some conversation on previous bids from the bidder on both occasions prior to? In other words, from the White group and the Freeman group, wasn't there a conversation after we received the bid?
They have both parties at various times have talked. I assume they probably talked with other city staff. I know that I've talked to both parties. My last conversation with Mr. Freeman, he indicated that he was represented by an attorney. I said, well, really, I need to talk to your attorney. And thus far, I haven't heard anything from them. Certainly, Mr. White and I talked, not specifically about the different bids. I mean, I think I've been very pleased, and I'll say this, and I think I forget the context. It was not in this context. It was in the context of some other issues that we've had come before city council and in city government in the past maybe 2 years. I've said that, I've been very pleased with how careful city staff has been as far as not revealing information that they shouldn't. That is, for instance, I think it would be problematic, potentially, if city staff was going around saying, hey, we got an upset bid. As far as I'm concerned, the policy has been, we don't say whether we've got an upset bid or not. And so I know I've never made that representation to anyone. I hope nobody else with the city has. I don't believe so. I know that I suspect that the communication from city council to city council has been is, we'll see when the opening occurs. Again, they're sealed, so even if there was something to that extent, we still don't know what's in there until we open it up.
I don't mean divulging, information that you can. I'm just saying conversations after the bid was received. Was there any conversation? And I'm thinking that if I were to receive a check, it seems like I would at least question that there was nothing else with it, especially if it was if it was enough to be the upset bid.
We don't. It was not opened until this afternoon. See, because it all comes in sealed. And I think to the extent that there's been any conversation in the past, I think the conversation's been, well, you need to put that bid in the envelope and close it up, and we will open it when the opening occurs. I mean, that's the thing about the sealed bid, and I think, and really I'm talking about a very small amount of people, basically the city manager and the city clerk. In fact, I know that the conversation from them is put it in the envelope and we'll open it when the bid opening occurs at the appropriate time. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying before. The city manager, the city clerk, they're both very good at what they do, but they're not attorneys. I'm an attorney, but I am an attorney for the city of Roanoke Rapids. There is a very hard limit on anything that we would characterize as legal advice that we could give to anybody without it being unauthorized practice of law. So it's really not for us to give advice on what too many aspects of this process other than this is the date, this is the time, you need to have it in at this time period. So.
If it's okay, let me ask it. Is there any other members of the council that have any comments we need to ask Mr. Davis at this time?
I've got one question, please. We don't need a motion then to officially close the bidding?
I would say no,
Okay.
not at this point, because you have 30 days from today. And so certainly within that time period, we're going to come back to you with a draft resolution. And at that time, council either accepts the resolution and confirms the sale, or council rejects it and we're back at zero.
So the person that didn't receive the bid, or would he know that before 30 days?
I would assume that
How would he?
I mean, he's going to get the deposit check back because we can't hold that.
With some conversation, I guess, but we're just sending it back.
Yes, yeah, we're going to have to let him know.
Okay.
We communicate with them about their preferred method, because some people like to come back and pick it up. We don't like to just put it in the mail. So there is communication there.
Mr. Smith or Mr. Daughtry, y'all got any questions?
My only question,
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, let her go ahead.
my only question would be, in the past, all of the other upset bids, because this has been going on several times, it has been a check along with another piece of documentation from an attorney, or?
Not necessarily from an attorney. I think in the case of Mr. White's folks, it's always come from an attorney, and maybe, to some extent with the cover letter on his letterhead, I think. And I'm not sure about Mr. Freeman's, but yes, in every other case, there has been a formal document that has been given that is addressed to, either myself or the city manager or both of us.
So we are not to assume, because this bid apparently, or this check came in, how did you all know that it was the bid then?
Two ladies came in that day, and I went down to the lobby, and they had the envelope, and they did ask me, did it need to include terms and conditions, those exact words, and I said no. And they wanted to have a letter that, like Kelly did last time, stating that I have received a bid. So I went upstairs, used the same format. When I received it, took it back downstairs. They held the bid the entire time, the envelope the entire time. And then we signed off on it. I gave them a copy. I kept a copy. And I took it upstairs and put it in the safe. And it did not come out to today, about 10 minutes to 4. So I didn't know what was in it, and it actually was in 2 envelopes when we opened it today.
On the exterior side of the envelopes, it said on there it was a offset bid. It says on here that it's a bid enclosed, but not a bid amount.
So they asked if it had to have terms and conditions, and you said no? Right?
No, because we talked in the last meeting that it didn't have to include terms and conditions. But they didn't say did it need to include a bid, they were handing me the bid. They said this was the upset bid, it's written on the outside, upset bid. I think it was on the outside of the envelope.
So
So-
the envelope said it was upset bid?
And it was already sealed. Like it
So if that was, so that, when we said no, it didn't need the terms, are we saying that a letter was not needed?
I think there needs to be something saying who the bidder is and what the bid amount is.
Wasn't there one previously? How did we receive that? Did 2 ladies bring it in the last time?
Thanks.
Yeah, and the first time they brought one to me, they actually wanted me to sign a form that they had already prepared, and I said I don't want to look at it because if it has an amount on there, I don't want to know what it is. We're keeping it confidential. And so they basically had it brought down a big envelope from upstairs and just said, just put everything in here, and they wanted me to sign off to acknowledge, basically a delivery receipt. So the letter I typed up just said, I received this on this day and time. And so, but as far as terms and conditions, we've been talking about this back, at each meeting, and the upset bid process is to drive up the sales price. And then we talk about terms and conditions and things like that, like whether or not someone's asking for anything extra, that's not part of the process, and we've been pretty clear about that, that purchase price and the corresponding bid deposit are by statute what is required for the upset bid process.
I don't feel really good about that, but, I
Me
mean,
neither.
it's
It's
not
messy
like
one
it
way or
was
the
their
other.
first time doing this, and so we were talking about a lawsuit on the other side. We may be looking at one on this one. It's my assumption, because they did include a check with an amount more than 5%, you said, at least over the preceding amount.
And
So,
it was written upset bid.
and it had upset bid written on it, so I don't know how we cannot consider that.
Council still has the authority to reject all bids.
Yeah, we understand that, but the question that we have is did it qualify as a bid? And with it saying upset bid written on the check, with the amount qualifying for the upset bid, as well as the time frame for the upset bid was then, in my opinion, it was an upset bid. And that's just my opinion. I'm not an attorney, but I got to vote.
I think you're kind of making the arguments the other side would make, and I mean, maybe that's where this ends up one way or the other. But
I don't know. I just think it's something is. And did they have another letter or anything in hand when they came in? Just the one letter, and they asked were there terms and you said no. So it sounded like
They said that it need to include terms or conditions, and I said no. That was it. And then I told
and at that point,
And
I
then
know
I
you
told
I know
them
you
that
didn't.
we were extending did they know that we were extending the deadline? And they said they had been following it on our website. But then, I mean, I don't know. So I just assumed that it had, it
Everything
felt
necessary.
big, it felt like it had paper in it. How would I know it didn't have an amount of the bid written on it, in it?
I think at this point
We don't need any action, as you
No.
see it. All right. 6 is new business. First item, well, actually, all 4 items, I think, come under finance, so we'll call on Ms. Johnson.
Resubmittal of the ordinance number 2023-04 for First and Jackson Street. It was a sinkhole in the street that was discovered in 2122. We did get the pipe for the project, but we have been on hold with the contractor because their asphalt plant is down. So, essentially I closed out 22-23, all this funds have rolled in fund balance, so now I'm asking you to reapprove those funds, pull them back out so they can finish the project in 23-24.
Anybody have any questions of Finance Director on this item?
And that's the amount of
Yes,
Six-
yes, it would be ordinance number 2023-07 in the amount of $69,882.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion to adopt ordinance number 2023.07 in the amount of $69,882 to repair the storm drain system at First and Jackson Street.
Okay, have a motion by Councilman Smith. Did you say second?
Second, yeah.
Second by Mayor Pro Tem Farabee. Is there any more discussion on this matter? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion will be approved. Next one's a $10,000 fire department grant.
Yes, the Roanoke Fire Department has been awarded $10,000 from ECU Health to improve the first responder program. So I'd like you to consider a motion to adopt ordinance number 2023-08, the amount of 10,000 for an ECU for the first responders program.
All right, now what is the improvement of the first responders program? I don't remember seeing anything on that.
Well, ECU gives it to.
Well, I know what ECU is doing, but what is our program that the city has for the first responders?
For the fire department, I don't know that.
Could we at a later meeting get some information about how those dollars would be spent? I assume that when they applied for the grant, they had something in that.
We can get that information for you.
Is that okay, Mr. Smith?
Well, I just assume, the question can't be answered, but maybe the next time we'll have a fireman here that can answer the question. I just didn't go ahead and approve the grant.
That's what I'm saying. We go ahead and approve and get some information on that next meeting. Okay, someone like to make a motion?
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to adopt ordinance 2023.08 in the amount of $10,000 for the ECU Health North Hospital's Community Benefit Grant to the fire department.
Okay, motion by Councilman Smith, I'm sorry, Steinback, a second to the motion,
Second.
second by Mr. Daughtry. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That'll be approved.
Okay, now I would like for you to consider, budget ordinance 2023-09. These are capital funds, that carry over from 22-23, these were the capital funds that you guys approved, that we have not completed yet. So I'd like you to consider a motion for 2023-09 in the amount of $1,262,548.25.
Can you tell us what projects they were? Have any,
Well,
rough?
of course, it's the fire truck that we
Okay.
have not received yet. The street paving, 500,000 for street paving. We do have some funds left to complete our enterprise rental car contracts. We also have, economic development funds left, that have not been utilized.
Okay, that probably just about takes care of it.
And I will
Anybody
just
else have
add that all of these had been approved mostly with when we did the American Rescue Plan allocation of funding, but the funding didn't all occur in one fiscal year. So if it has carryover funds for things that have been approved that just the expenditures have not been completed, we need a budget amendment in order to bring the amounts that have been already approved to roll them into the current fiscal year.
All right, this money in, reserve funds, where this money is now?
They've already been approved and earmarked by council. It's just a matter of putting them into the current fiscal year.
Right, but
So it's the same thing as with budget ordinance number 1, the First Jackson Street. That money had been approved, but since I've closed the books, that money is rolled into fund balance. So what I'm asking you to do is pull it back out.
fund balance.
Okay, anybody else have a question? Need a motion?
I'll make the motion to consider to adopt ordinance number 2023-09 in the amount of $1,262,582.25 to carry over capital funds from fiscal year 2022-2023.
Okay, Mr. Smith, I think you got it to 548, you said 582.
548.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is that sufficient, Mr. Davis? He just got a couple of, you got it, Madam Clerk? $1,262,548.25. Do we have a second to the motion?
Second.
Second by Councilman Farabee.
I would, however, like to go back and look at these items, not now, but if you could send us something in detail on some of these items, like the capital outlay for the library, the TJ Davis, and I know we've already approved those in the last budget, but if we could get a little more detail on some of that. And I know you guys.
Tell you exactly what TJ Davis is for
The master plan.
master plan
Recreation.
that we had allocated money for, and then the rest of it is like the enterprise money that they have left for their vehicle.
We'll prepare an updated list.
Thank you.
Let's see. We got a motion. Did we get a second yet?
You did.
Mr. Farabee is second. Any more discussion? If there is none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
And opposed, no. That motion would also be approved.
Okay, the next, ordinance, that I'm asking you to consider is, 2023-10 in the amount of $239,536.25. These are, federal treasury asset forfeiture funds and, OSC, unauthorized substance abuse tax funds that the police department has received. And we, had a budget amendment last meeting of that $205,000 that I was asking you to accept. And now I'm asking you to, allocate these funds so that we can budget for them in this fiscal year.
So that 205, there were additional funds?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
The total amount is $239,536.25.
Okay, if there are no more questions, we need a motion to approve this.
Mayor, I'd like to make a motion to adopt ordinance number 2023.10 in the amount of $239,536.25 for the federal treasury asset forfeiture and OSC unauthorized substance tax funds to be added to the fiscal year 2023-2024 budget.
All righty.
Second.
Have a motion by Councilwoman Bryant and a second by Councilman Smith. Any more discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. That motion would also be approved. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. City Manager's report.
One point of business that kind of keeps coming up here is our next meeting scheduled for Tuesday, August the 1st, at 5:30 PM. That's also the same night as National Night Out that is celebrated throughout the United States, many police departments and so forth for, I think this is the 40th year. And so we talked about having the meeting a little bit earlier that evening, or potentially just canceling the meeting for either a lack of agenda items. I've heard from a couple of people, but I guess the recommendation right now is to cancel the August 1st meeting, but it would be appropriate for council to have a motion and a vote to effectively cancel that meeting if that's what we want to do. If not, if you want to have a meeting on the 1st, we just ask if we can have it at a different start time to allow for participation in that community event. So if y'all have any questions at this time or anything about that.
I don't, Mr. Bell,
Yes, sir.
need a question for the, I don't have any problem canceling the August the 1st meeting, but we need to have a call meeting, I think, for the resolution that that should be brought back before council.
If I'm counting right, and this is just me kind of doing it here in the moment, I think it's actually 29 days till our next meeting from today, and it's cutting a little close, and it's assuming my counting is right. So I would say we probably do need to have a meeting, at least on that issue, for council to accept or reject at some point before August 15th. That's what I would suggest.
What about that Wednesday or Thursday or after the Tuesday, after the 1st?
I'm actually not going to be here after August 1st for the rest of that week.
Can we do it next week?
Do it on the 1st and just move it up like it was suggested, 4:30?
So
Summer
Y'all do like
schedule.
Ms. Bryant said, just do it on that. What time does the night out start?
It opens to the public, I believe, at 6 o'clock PM.
We do it at 4:30 and just I mean, have a special, could we,
We can
I
do
mean,
that.
just do it and do that one thing, and then we don't get involved in a long meeting and miss going to the event? Or just don't have much on the agenda? What's,
That's fine, as long as we got a quorum.
okay, I mean, most of us come that early.
Well, Tommy's not gonna be here that night.
Well, if we have a quorum, everybody else can come to the regular meeting at 4:30. Stay back.
I can be here.
Okay, let's do that then.
And so you're gonna have it when?
August the 1st is the date, is it not? At 4:30.
You want to do a motion and vote for that, or to
Okay,
change
yeah,
that?
city manager said we need a motion on that.
I'll make a motion to change the scheduled date, to keep the scheduled date of August 1st, but move the time to 4:30 instead of 5:30.
Have a motion by Councilwoman Bryant. Do you hear a second to her motion?
I second that.
Second by Mr. Stainback. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no.
No.
Okay. Motion is passed.
Yeah, I don't have many other items to report at the moment unless you have any specific questions. There's a few updates that I'm working on getting out for you, some various projects, but the summer season, we're in full swing with use of our facilities and students out of school, and like many have said, we're in kind of like the vacation mode, but we're keeping up with projects and moving along into the current new fiscal year. So I'll defer the rest of my time to the remainder of the agenda unless you have any further questions.
If I could ask you a question about, as far as the council, I don't know about other council members, but I don't get very much information about, like in the past, the city manager would usually send us like a weekly kind of an update, like on Friday. And if you could, just hit the high points, and because I think we all don't like hearing about, if there are bad things or good things that go on in the town and other people know about it and we don't. So, anybody have a problem with that?
No, I do need to be better about doing all that. So.
I don't need a dictionary, just just a little something. Okay, Ms. Johnson, I'll call on you again for the finance report.
Can you give us an update on what's happening on Main Street up there, as far as the building that Mr. Hurt is doing? And maybe Tony can give us an update on what other stuff he's doing on Main Street.
Sure. I've been waiting on some correspondence back from Michael Hurt about the status of the McCory building since we last spoke about it, but I know that he had plans that were being drawn that have to be approved by the State Historic Preservation Office for the tax credit program before he could move forward with filing applications with the city on that. So that tax credit program for the renovation is, I guess, going through that process and procedure is where it is right now. But I have reached out to Mr. Hurt for an update, and it's been just a couple days now, so I'm going to reach back out to him and get a better timeline there, or at least something more consistent to see what the update is. But Mr. Hall, do you want to provide any other updates on Main Street?
We do have a lot going on. I know it's hard to see right now. We got one two buildings that, one is almost completely done with their rehab using the rehabilitation money. This is not going as quickly as I would prefer, but we have encouraged them to use local people. Instead of, ordering from a big box store, try to use the local folks to replace your windows. If you were going to replace your awning, use local people. So when you have 16, 18 businesses trying to use the same 3 or 4 people, it moves a little bit slow. But they are moving forward with that. We have continued to order as we see need for the benches, things like that, people have asked for, some of the businesses have asked for as far as that goes. Our planters were well received. Because we had received so much rain once we put them out, it was hard to see if the self-watering were working well, and we're happy to say that yes, they are. So all of that it's expensive, but it's well worth it because we don't have a way to go down the street water and everything. Public Works is great at helping do that. So we are very thankful for that. The merchants have been really good about helping us keep up with that as well. So you should be able to see more throughout the summer. The completion dates is the end of November. This is not as quickly as I would like to have seen it, but with so many projects going on, we wanted people to do it correctly. So that's where we are with that. We do have the last mural to be installed. We have a property that wants to have the mural there. However, there is an issue with the shared wall of the building. So we are working through to see exactly who owns the wall and who can actually give permission to have this last mural put on that wall. Shouldn't be that big of a deal. We just have to ascertain who exactly owns that wall to get permission to move forward to do all of that. And we have a statistics report that is due for our downtown area that's due August the 1st. We're looking into that, so that will kind of let us know where we fall in a lot of things. So by January, we should have a more detailed report. I know the city manager and I have talked about, once all of our projects are completed, giving you a visual report in January so that you can kind of see where we were, where we are, and the value that all these projects not only are adding to the individual businesses, but also adding to our downtown. So, questions?
Can you maybe at the next meeting give us kind of a flashback, so to say, or look back and see where we were so far as businesses on the avenue, and how many of those are still here and open? How many of them have moved on or gone out of business, and how many empty buildings we have?
Yes, that's all part of our statistics report that will be submitted. I'll actually be at the Main Street Conference when you have your next meeting, but all of that I think they give that back to us by December. But I can give you a rough sketch just where we stand with that once we get all of that completed, which I should be able to have for you the second meeting in August. That should not be a problem. So we are not in dire straits as you may think. So I am glad to say that we're doing okay, but not like I would like to see. So, but in this struggling economy, our merchants are really, they're trying hard. They're doing their stuff. So as long as we can continue to support them, show up, buy what they have, go to their restaurants as much as we can, I'm sure that will greatly. It's sort of like putting money in our own pocket when we support the small mom and pop stores.
Okay, are you keeping the city manager informed on the stuff that you're doing?
Yes, she gets her.
The murals and different stuff that you're doing around town.
Yes.
But she's informed on all that.
Yes.
And she's okay in the projects that y'all want to do.
I think so. If there's an issue, we usually try to talk about it.
Okay.
So,
how many more murals are you
It's just one more.
It's just one so far?
No, there's two. There have been
Where's
two.
the second one?
The second one is on the side of the wall there at the quality shop that faces the 1026 space. And the third one, I think it will be great. I can't say where that one's going to go until we get that completely worked out. That it will go, but I think everyone will enjoy them.
Is there any progress being made on the corner of Second and the Avenue?
Mr. Chalker has sort of been looking after that, but to my knowledge, I don't know that we've moved any forward with that. At least as far as I know.
So you can almost see it
Leaning.
moving.
Yeah.
And so I guess if it falls on Second Street, maybe the city would be charged with cleaning it up, and if it falls on the avenue, maybe the state will work on it. In a word, is nothing being done on it? It's just kind of sitting there?
Well, it's in process in the formal process for the unsafe building that we have to follow under the guidelines of trying to get cooperation with the owner. The building owner has reached out to me, and I have a call back that I owe him for that. So he was looking into for some supplemental funds or for some funding assistance for demolition. So there is some movement. It's just not quick movement there. When it's the property owner that has the only authority right now to do anything with it.
And would that be the same case for the building also in the 200 block on the other side of the street?
The fire damage building?
The fire
yes.
damage.
Mm-hmm. Yes, but those are ones that we're getting close that we could, working with the minimum housing officer, that they may be able to come to council for some action, but again, we'd have to look at if the city is going to take on any demolition, then we need to look at where the funding source would come from.
Okay, anybody else have anything? All right, thank you for your report. Other business, closed session. We need a motion for a closed session under the
Mr. Mayor, I
statute.
think the finance report.
I'm sorry. Finance.
Okay. General fund year-to-date receipts totaled 19 million, which includes the second allocation of the ARPA funds, which we've already talked about. The expenditures is around 17.8. So for the month of June, 87.2% of the budget has been complete. During the month of June, we received ad valorem, motor vehicle tax, sales tax, hold harmless revenue, utility franchise tax, beer and wine, and residential and commercial solid waste fees. We still have yet to receive ad valorem for June, motor vehicle for June, sales and use tax for May and June, hold harmless for May and June, and also residential and commercial solid waste for June. So, we're not quite done with last year.
I had been looking over your report and it looked so good. I guess I just thought we had already done it.
Yeah.
Anyway, anybody have any questions of Ms. Johnson? If not,
Thank you.
I don't think we need a motion, so thank you. Now we'll move on to item 9, which is a closed session. Discuss a personnel matter under the general statute. Somebody state the statute with your motion.
Mr. Mayor, I'll make a motion to go into closed session to discuss a personnel matter as allowed by North Carolina General Statute 143, 318.11A6.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilwoman Stainback. Second to his motion.
Second.
Second by Councilman Daughtry. Any more discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. We'll take a brief recess and we'll go into closed session.